ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। ॐ श्रीचिन्मय सद्गुरवे नमः। योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां मलं शरीरस्य यच्च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पातञ्जलिप्राञ्जलिनामतोऽस्मि। हरि ओम. We have so far come up to the 17th mantra of the Samadhi Pada, the first Pada of Patanjali Yoga Shastra. Up to 16th mantra, we have seen the preparation required for a sadhaka to enter the journey called Samadhi. The distinction between up to 15th mantra or 16th mantra and then onwards is all the sadhana that is done in Bahya Vishwa, external world, outer world, is up to mantra 16. Vairagyam is the last bastion of outer world. We are completely immersed in the outer world and we have never explored the internal world or the Antarvishwa. Yoga is a journey from outer world to the inner world and from inner world to the no world. Because the world is made up of vrittis or change in the mind, any change in the mind is creation of the world. Any formation of vritti is instant creation of the world. How big is the world? It is proportionate to the vrittis that you have in the mind. In case we do not have vrittis in our mind, the world is not existing. So world has a phenomenal appearance till the time mind is interacting with it. If the mind is not interacting, means if the mind doesn't have vritti, change, thought in it, the world has no business of existing at all. The whole exercise of yoga is to move away from the phenomenal world towards the nominal world, which is basically a movement from Bahya Vishwa to the Antarvishwa. And the way to completely withdraw or submerge the external world is to not let sense organs do their own respective function. Withdrawal of sense organs is withdrawal of mind from the external world. Mind well, Pancha Indriya's withdrawal is the first step of withdrawing from the outer world so that now we can move inward for the inner Indriya called Mana and start working on it. So first the withdrawal of all the sense organs, Indriyas, from all the phenomenal or the visible world of objects Once that is done, then we work on the mind so that we withdraw ourselves from all the impressions of the phenomenal world in the mind. So what has happened now is the senses are not engaged into anything outside, which is the world of objects. Mind is not engaged into anything which it is capable of in terms of externalization. Now what would mind do? We are not able to even imagine a mind which is without work. When the vrittis are not there, mind is without work. What happens to the mind which doesn't have a work? We don't know, because we have never kept the mind without work. More you are involved into the outer world, less you cater to your mind. We get so engrossed into the outer world, sense and the sense objects, that we even neglect the sixth indriya called mind. To an extent, we go to a psychiatrist and say, something is wrong here in my inner organ called mind. Can you correct it? Why? It is becoming too anxious. When I was indulging into the sense objects, I never bothered that it is impacting my sixth indriya, because we do not even cater for our mind. We don't look towards our mind. That is what we call, we don't think. Think of what? We never think of the thinking we do. So engrossed are we into the external world that we do not pay attention to our mind. In yoga, we completely cater to the senses and the outer world so that we shut them off. So one major obstacle is over. The world virtually does not exist for me. It exists for the people who are indulging in it. And then they start working on the mind, and then they observe the mind and ask the mind also to withdraw from the objects. Withdrawal of the mind is very, very difficult and essential, because you may withdraw from an object. The Ferrari showroom I may not visit. That way I am away from that object so that my eye doesn't see the car, and there is no inherent desire to acquire that car. However, I may carry the Ferrari in my mind, and I may be sitting in the most poor condition, but I can still think of the Ferrari and feel unhappy about it. So the world of objects outside, which are perceptible, and the world of impression of objects inside the mind, both are dealt by Vairagya. And we saw that stage-wise, going from Yatamana Vyatireka Ekagra to Vashikara Saudhya Vairagya. Vashikara Saudhya is one where the mind also does not think of any impression of objects or subjects. Now, what is the situation of the yogi who is a Vairagya Purna, who is Apara Vairagi? We're not talking of Para Vairagi as yet, but Apara Vairagi, because Para Vairagi is only after Darshanam of Purusha. We are not still talking about it. At Apara Vairagya, you have nothing to do with the world and the mind. Now comes the question, at this stage, then what will mind be doing? What is the mental status of a yogi who has withdrawn himself from the outer world, as well as who has withdrawn his mind from the outer world? And that is precisely where the journey of 17th mantra starts. And the description of the mind of that yogi who is in this state starts now. So let's be very clear in the beginning itself that henceforth the description that is coming is of a yogi who has withdrawn himself completely from the outer world as well as from the mind, not letting the mind run after any object whose impression has been stored in the mind. Mind well, the mind has a capacity and a power to disturb us if not more, as equal to actually seeing an object. For that matter, it could be that the mind can create more havoc than the objects and the sense object interaction. I will give you an example. Somebody insults us right in front of our eyes, it gives a pain to us, a feeling of sorrow comes to the mind. Because the person who is insulting is right in front of me and is shouting at me, so it does definitely create trouble in me. It even affects my body. I tremble. I've got enormous anger in my body. The blood pressure has gone up. The heart rate is there. The thud in the chest is visibly heard by me inside my mind. All this is happening. This is interacting with the subject or the object in the outer world. Now the incidence is gone. And after 3 years, I'm sitting at one place, and that person who insulted me, his name comes to my mind by coincidence because I hear it on a TV serial. Now, what has happened? The whole incidence is replayed on the mind. That means mind created that world again. And that incidence happened over a period of 1 hour, but the entire 1 hour is replayed in front of me by mind in few seconds. And now I'm free to express myself because the person is not around. So in the mind, for the incidents that is remembered, I can fiercely interact with that incidents. So it becomes more intense an incidents, sometimes even more intense than what has actually happened. We all have heard of generalized anxiety disorder, GAD, or it is called anxiety neurosis. The knock on the door creates havoc in the mind. Why? I don't know who has come. I don't know what is happening. Anxiety personified. See the way the mind plays. Depression. What is depression? Something that has not happened. The mind just keeps giving you a feeling that you can't do it. You don't have confidence. You won't be able to do it. There's no point in life. Life is all gone. It is all useless, all dark, all melancholic. Mind plays worse games than the actual happenings. So that yogi who has overcome both these because of complete cessation of activities of sense organs with the objects in the outer world as well as of the mind, that means the one who has reached the Vashikara Saudhya level, upper Vairagya, for him what happens in his mind is the subject of study today. So let's be clear about whose mind we are studying. We are miles away from this mind that we are studying. Such a yogi, once he cuts off from the Bahirvishwa, the mind is not there, the external world is not there, then what happens is he has no other way left but to go further inwards, and that inward journey is described as Vitarka Vichara Ananda Asmita Anugama Sampradnyata. Now last time we went little hurriedly on this, so maybe there is a lot of confusion, rightfully so. But the fact is now we are entering into an area where we have to girdle up our lions and be prepared with incisive mind to understand what we are going to study. It might appear extremely abstract. It might appear extremely difficult to understand, but that's the way to move forward, because the understanding is of the state of a yogi who has cut off himself from the world and has embarked on the journey of the mind inside. Such a yogi, when he is no more into the world of ours or the world of that we experience, and he has started a journey inside, the journey begins with what is called as vitarka. Then it moves to the next station called vichara. Then it moves to the next station called ananda. And it moves to the next or the last stage of sampradnyat samadhi, which is called asmita. Now, all the four words are either heard by us, but we don't know what is the precise meaning. And we need to know it precisely from the yogic standpoint of view. Vitarka. So far, this word we have used as that Tarka, Vitarka and Kutarka. This is what we have heard. But that is Shabdartha. Now we are going to go by Lakshanartha. And that is why last time we tried to see a Kaivalya Dham interpretation of these words in terms of Sanskrit and how then Vitarka can be this, etc. But the real interpretation has to come from a yogi, and that is why the one who has experienced all the four stages, one who spoke from the experiential, empirical knowledge point of view was Swami Vivekananda. So we will see now what is Vivekananda Maharaj has to see on this mantra. First of all, this is a description according to Vivekananda is of a samadhi. Now we are going to have the second path called sadhana path later on, wherein we are going to see all these stages to reach samadhi in detail. But in short, after pratyahara has been done, pratyahara is abstraction. You leave everything and come to at one point. Then we do what is called as a dharana. Dharana means you take one object and hold on to it. Dharana. Then we do dhyanam, and the deep dhyanam leads to samadhi. This much is enough at this stage. It's going to be seen in detail in sadhana path. It requires and it deserves a lot of detail. But right now, it is enough for us to know that through the different stages of Ashtanga Yoga, in the penultimate stages, going through pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, we come to samadhi. Another reason why we are trying to see this in detail is when we will be seeing the third path called Vibhuti Pada, we will be seeing something astonishing and mesmerizing feats achieved by the yogis. What all powers and siddhis the yogis can enjoy are given in detail there. They're given in detail and they're so mesmerizing that it completely we will disbelieve in what is written there. But to know that they are true, this foundation that what we are talking is very important. And that is how we are coming to the interpretation of the first samadhi called Savitarka Sampradnyat Samadhi. Again, not to confuse ourselves, we have come to a stage called Samadhi. Samadhi is of two types, Sampradnyat, Asampradnyat. We also saw that for some Sampradnyat and Asampradnyat, word Samadhi has not been used by Patanjali Maharaj. However, this is equated with Samadhi by none else than Vivekananda Maharaj. So we can use that word little loosely as Sampradnyat Samadhi, Asampradnyat Samadhi. Now, first of all, we have seen the meaning of the word Sampradnyat. Sampradnyat, Sampurnataya, Prakarshena, that which is known in all the details is Pradnya. We've seen that. But Sampradnyat and Asampradnyat also has other names, which we have heard here and there. So there could be some confusion. So let us set the confusion apart. Sampradnyat Samadhi by itself is also called as Savikalpa Samadhi. Sampradnyat Samadhi is also called Savikalpa Samadhi. It is also called Sa-alambana Samadhi. It is also called Sabija Samadhi. Again, Sampradnyat, Sa-alambana, Sabija, Savikalpa, they are more or less same. Subtle differences we will see down the line, but they are more or less same. Then the question is why different names are there? Because Samadhi itself has different names depending upon which marga you have chosen. Right now we are studying Yoga Marga. It is called Sampradnyat, Asampradnyat. If we are talking about Samadhi through Vedanta, it is called Savikalpa, Nirvikalpa, or Sabija or Nirbija. So the Samadhi that we call is in Raja Yoga, which we are studying, Patanjali Yoga Shastra, is known as Sampradnyat, Asampradnyat Samadhi. Advaita calls it as Bheda Samadhi. In Bhakti Marga, it is called Bhakti Samadhi or Bhava Samadhi. Names are different because the methodologies are different. In Bhakti Yoga, you don't have anything like this, Nirodha Chitta Vritti, nothing. They know only one thing, Vitthal and myself, Narayan and myself, get into it, get into it, get into it, and go to Samadhi. Bhava Samadhi. All the Saguna Santa, Tukaram, Nande, Vitthal, Narayan, Namdev, Ekanath, Ramadas, all these are called, they are into Bhakti Marga. So it is Bhava Samadhi. Those who are into Vedanta and only focus on Atman, they get into what is called Bheda Samadhi. Those who are into Raja Yoga, they go into this Sampradnyat and Sampradnyat Samadhi through the technique that we are studying. And in Hatha Yoga, they don't even do this. They simply control the pranayam, and with the control of pranayam, they go into Samadhi. That is Hatha Yoga Samadhi. So there are different ways of reaching a Samadhi. The point of destination is same, methodology is different. Currently, we are studying the methodology which is called as Savitarka, the Sampradnyat and Asampradnyat Samadhi of Raja Yoga. Again, to recapitulate, Samadhi is of two types, Sampradnyat, Asampradnyat. Sampradnyat is also called as a Sabija, Savikalpa, Sa Alambana. Asampradnyat is called Nirbija, Nirvikalpa, Niravalamba. No alambana. Now, question is, what is this Sampradnyat, Alambana, Sabija, etc.? The two distinct divisions in Samadhi are made simply because if you are holding on to something, it is called Alambana. Example, you're folding your hands and trying to take the Murti of Vithala or Narayana or whatever you Ishta Devata in front of you. If not Murti, then you can just take a stone called Shaligram and think that it is Vishnu. So what is happening? We are taking the support of that pratika that you took and do some kalpana on it that this is not a stone, this is Vishnu. So Nikrushte Utkrushta Buddhihi. This is called Pratikopasana. So you have taken alambana, support, adhar of something, a murti or whatever, object. Mind well, you need not have to take only an object of a solid thing in hand and then focus on it. You can also focus on a kalpana, an imagination, isn't it? And what can you focus on? It could be anything. It could be smallest of the small, largest of the large. It depends on your own intuitive capacity to hold on to something. But the fact remains that you hold on to something, and that is why it is called Sampradnyat or Alambana Samadhi. Once this is clear, then these four types we are now free to move ahead. The first is called Vitarka Sampradnyat Samadhi or Savitarka Samadhi. Vitarka is the first thing. Let's be very clear. Vivekananda Maharaj, the first thing he tells is Vitarka means question, to ask. Now I am doing Samadhi or Dhyanam, whom to ask? Asking means to inquire. Now how do we inquire? How do we ask? Because now I have taken in front of me an object. How can I inquire into an object? By focusing on its aspects. By focusing on its aspects. Now comes the question, what are the aspects? You have to make your understanding stronger. The faculty of perception has to be sharp now to understand. Suppose I take a word and I say Ram, Ram, Ram. We have done this japam many a times. But what we have never bothered to see the details. Now let us see the details of the word Ram. What do you get when you say Ram? The first is that there is a word called Ram. That's the first thing. The first thing is Ram. That word is pronounced here somewhere in our mouth. And if I am not uttering it loudly, then still it is produced somewhere here, Ram. Without the sound also the same word can emanate. That emanating word, when it starts coming out, it is only a sound. Because you heard Ra and Ma both in your ears, you are able to immediately think, at least know that I said Ram. But this Ram, when it started from my mouth and reached your ear, there is some time gap in between it. So at that point of time, when the word comes to the place where it is deciphered, where it is converted into meaning, that distance which has traveled, till that time it is only a word or a dhvani, sound. This is called Shabda. This is called Shabda. Now the question is, when that Shabda comes on my ear and goes inside my faculty called brain, where it gets analyzed, what comes out? The word gets converted into Rupa. Think. The word gets converted into Rupa. Now the Ram is no more a word. What is Ram? Oh, there's a 6 feet, 5.5 feet, whatever, with brilliant luster, whatever you have in your mind. What has happened? The Nada or the Dhvani or the Shabda has taken the Roop or the form. Right? So the name has become an object now. The word has got a meaning now. The Shabda has got a Roop or the Artha now. Up to this point, it is fine. Again, think subtly. The sound took some time to come and get converted into Rupa. The Rupa also gets some time to get converted from the Rupa to its knowledge. Again, let me explain. 3 stages we are understanding. When we utter a word, the utterance is a sound which goes into the brain and is deciphered. Till that point, it is Dhvani or Shabda. Shabda becomes Rupa when the deciphered thing is constructed in the form of an shape or object. So when I see a dog, I see, then that is brought into my mind, which is perception. It is cognized as dog. Up to this point, fine. In the cognition also, the shape and everything, that much is known. But Ram, Bhagwan Ram, that has not yet happened. When that happens, the perception and the cognition is converted into a full understanding, which is called Jnana of that object. Shabda, Artha, Jnana, Dhvani, Rupa, Jnana, word, meaning, understanding. Word, meaning, understanding. The word may be same for you and me. If I say Ram, you also know what Ram, word, both we know. As we move forward, the individuals start differing from one another. Ram as a word, if you are an Indian, you will understand, both of us, we will know what word Ram is. Even a Britisher also will say that he said Ram. He may not know what it is, but he'll say Ram. So Shabda is common to all. Artha, it will start differing. For a person who is from Ayodhya, he will have a Ram with a bow in the hand, etc. A person from Lanka, he may have a different understanding. So what is going to happen? The roop of the Rama may differ. Some of them may say he was slightly bluish, slightly reddish, slightly whitish. Roop depends on your own perception, perceptive cognition. Shabda Artha. Jnana is completely individualistic. The ultimate understanding is completely individualistic. So Shabda Artha Jnana. Nama Rupa Jnana. Word meaning understanding. name, object, concept. This is how a normally anywhere you look towards any object, this is the process. Why I'm telling this process in detail is when you want to question or query the precise nature of anything which is under meditation, that is called vitarka or savitarka samadhi. Now, what are we doing here? Suppose you are meditating on a Ram, Bhagavan Ram. Then the first thing is Ram word slowly starts disappearing, only the roop remains. So what happened? You inquired. Inquired means focused. Inquiry is what? Focusing and analyzing. By focusing, automatically you analyze the word Ram may get repeated, but it becomes mechanical because now focus is more on the shape of the Ram. If this mind, which is purely sattvic in nature, because mind, well, we are talking about the mind of a yogi, which is even vairagya purna. When he is meditating, why is he meditating? Because he is shut off from everywhere. He is shut off from everywhere. So there is no choice but for the mind to go through these stages. Antar pravasa has started in the internal journey, inner journey. He is in the first stage where he picks up something from the external world which he has forgotten so far, but only one object. Ekam agre asit ekagrata. So one object is taken. If the vairagyam is not complete, he will not be able to do that because he'll go again back to the external world. He'll be thrown into the external world. That is why some stupid people try to do meditation even though there is no chitta shuddhi and there is no sattvikta. Without chitta shuddhi and vairagyam, there is no point in attempting meditation because the mind will throw us out into the external world. It's not a trained mind. The mind which is trained into the vairagya, shutting off the external world, is now poised for internal journey. And in the internal journey, the journey which is called sampradnyat samadhi, the first station called vitarka is what we are studying. I'm again and again reminding because in the flow of discussion, there is a possibility that we may get blown away somewhere and forgetting what precisely I was studying. So vitarka we are studying. In the vitarka, we saw that any object, gross object is taken for meditation. It is also called as sthula dhyana. Vitarka and vichar, the first two, are also called as sthula dhyana. Vitarka is also known as sthula. Sthula dhyana means some sthula object is there, gross object is there. It's not at sukshma dhyana, some gross object is there. Maybe a murti, maybe Gurudeva's photograph, whatever. In that we see Shabda Arthas. That is why whenever you are meditating or trying to meditate on Gurudeva, we see Gurudeva, then suddenly the mind goes, when I was in Siddhbari, something like this happened, went out. Why? There is no internal journey. This is again going out into the external world. Only when the internal journey starts, the first thing is Gurudeva's name will come. Gurudeva, his name will come. Chinmayananda, whatever, Chinmayji, whatever you feel, that name will come. Then we will see Gurudeva in his shape. That is Roop or Artha. If you continue to focus on it, then what happens is, this is the time when the object that is being focused upon starts bearing itself in its inner nature. So when Shabd and Artha are dropped, only Jnanam of that object remains, which is the pure essence of that item, of that object. So the gross dhyana, sthula dhyana, which is called vitarka, if it is focusing on the nama rupa of an object or a pratika, it starts getting focused on that object so deeply that the object starts throwing the internal, purest possible inner aspect of that object to the mind of the meditator. And when this happens, the object surrenders itself to the mind of the meditator. I hope I am making the sense. The object of dhyanam starts opening up its true nature. And mind well, true nature means that which is not associated with nama and rupa. So the true nature, once it is exposed, the mind of the person who is doing this dhyanam completely comprehends the object. And knowing and comprehending an object in its entirety is called Vashikarana. So as a result, he gets the complete control on the object. And that is what we call as a kind of a siddhi. This is beginning of siddhi. Much more, many more are going to come down the line as we see other samadhis, other stages. But this is where it starts. Because of higher concentration, ekagrata. Why ekagrata? He has gone through the vairagya. He has already gone to yatimana vitarika ekagra, vashikara. He has gone through those stages. So ekagrata has developed so much, satvikta is so much that whenever he sits for meditation, the first thing is he takes a gross object, starts meditating upon it. That particular gross object on which he meditates, he sees a nama, rupa, and jnana, all the three. Then he questions them, queries them, analyzes them. So it is called vitarka or savitarka sampradnyat samadhi. And then, because of savitarka, he gets a complete control of that object. Now the next stage, in the first stage, a next stage develops. Still in the first stage. The next stage develops. What is the next stage that comes? So far you are imagining the Vishnu or Gurudev or Ram or the Shaligram. How are we imagining it? Even in the mind when we imagine it that it is placed somewhere. So we see it in three-dimensional object. Also, we are aware that here in my house where I am meditating, in front of my mind, I have a murti. So I have time and space both as my coordinates. Both are my coordinates. What do you mean by coordinates? I am aware that I am meditating in the time frame. It is morning now. It is at subconscious level. I am aware of this. I am aware of time and space. Whenever I am aware of time and space and I am meditating on the nama, rupa, shabda, artha, jnana, word, meaning, understanding, then it is called savitarka. But as I focus more and more, my concept of time and space starts phasing out. When time and space starts phasing out, the meditator, when he comes out of the meditation, he doesn't know how much time has passed. And sometimes he takes some time to know where is he. So when time and space are taken out in savitarka samadhi, the same samadhi is called nirvitarka sampradnyat samadhi. We are trying to see 4 stages of sampradnyat samadhi. We are in the first stage called vitarka samadhi. Vitarka has got 2 types, savitarka and nirvitarka. When we say savitarka, in savitarka, the mind meditates on one object, excluding all other objects in the universe. And this object that you will be taking will be from the nature, Prakriti. Because you focus on one object and meditate on one object and meditate on the 3 different aspects called Nama, Rupa, and understanding Jnana, the object throws itself open, and that is called full knowledge, complete knowledge, knowledge in entirety of the object that you are meditating. And knowledge is power, as Vivekananda Maharaj calls it. As soon as we meditate on the nature, we know the nature and we get power on the nature, power over the nature. So that is how the siddhis starts coming. Now there are only 5 elements in this universe. The object could be a shaligram, but it is made up of what? Prithvi Tattva. Because when you meditate, it is not that you come to know about the entire thing about a shaligram. You come to know about the Prithvi Tattvam. So anywhere, wherever there is Prithvi Tattvam, you have mastery over it. And we know Panchikarana. No object is of one element. It is always made up of all the 5 elements into it. We know Panchikarana. So that means by meditating on any object, you are basically meditating on 5 different bhutas. And Pancha Mahabhutas are the nature. That is how the yogi starts getting the control over the nature. Why? Because he knows the precise content of the nature. Not Namarupatma Gnan. This is stone, that is tree, that is our Jnana. Namarup is gone. He gets precise control about the intricate understanding of all the Pancha Mahabhutas, and that is how he gets enormous power over the nature. That is why the word used is knowledge is power, not the knowledge that we are learning, the knowledge of the intricacies of the Pancha Mahabhutas. And mind well, this is the result of a mind which is completely yataman, completely vashikara saudhya vairagya or apara vairagya. Sattvikta is in high stage. And then when such a yogi sits in meditation, which is called upasana, and we have seen upasana's definition. Upasana nama yatha shastra upasyarthasya vishayi taking some vishayi karanena samipam upagamya. Samipam upagamya means you go close to the object of meditation, almost you become the object of meditation. Samipyam upagamya taila dharavat samana pratyaya pravahena. Like a stream of oil, the thought of that object is continuously dirghakala, satu dirghakalena drudabhumi. Samana pratyaya pravahena. The thought or the focus is only in one particular parameter of dimension. No ups and downs. When this is done, dirgha kalam yad asanam tat upasana. So somebody who does this kind of upasana or dhanam in the journey of sampradnat samadhi, at the first stage amongst the 4, we enter a stage called vitarka samadhi, which is called savitarka as long as time and space parameters are kept intact. When time and space are also gone, but still you're focusing on Ram or whatever, then what happens? Then you get into nirvitarka samadhi. In such situation of samadhi, the object may appear in front of you as a living thing. That is why Gaurima, the disciple of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, had a Balakrishna on her shoulder. She saw Balakrishna playing here. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa had a Ram Lalla playing with him for almost 6 months. Nobody else could see it. He saw it. What is that? It was the result of parinama of samadhi, in which the object of samadhi becomes druggochara. So much was the focus of Ramakrishna on Kali Mata that while doing the worship, he used to get so much absorbed through this samadhi process that sometimes while cleaning her mouth, he used to feel the warm air coming from her nostrils. Normally we have a tendency of brushing aside these things as bhakti hai to something. Not at all, sir. It has a scientific basis, it has an empirical basis, and that is why to get Ramakrishna Paramahamsa in front of him for any answer for Swami Vivekananda was not a big deal, because sitting in America he could call Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. Focus, dhanam, druggojatar. They appear in front of you. That is why in Puranas it is called as darshana. उन्होंने ध्यान किया और उनको दर्शन हुआ. We normally take it as some kind of arthavad. No, it has a basis. The basis comes from here. Savitar. The lightest example of this samadhi can be seen in a scientist who wins a Nobel Prize. Marie Curie was focused on finding that particular element which was radioactive, and all that she was doing is nothing else but samadhi. Swami Shivananda goes to an extent of saying that even studying the philosophy the way we are studying, if we do it with lot of concentration, it itself is a part of samadhi. The result is that I understood Raja Yoga. What do you mean by understood? How did you understand that? You went through a small process of samadhi, sir. You took that object concept called vitarka, thought about what is vitarka, you thought about it. And then what happened? The vitarka word, which is an abstract thing, vitarka is not a substance. We are trying to study vitarka. The vitarka unfolded itself in front of you. The process, same thing happened. So savitarka sampradnyat samadhi is the first stage. Nirvitarka sampradnyat samadhi is a subvariant. Whenever we do anything into the time and space dimension, the meditation on a gross object, it is called savitarka sampradnyat samadhi. Then comes the next stage called vichar. This is again divided into two, savichar and nirvichar. Savichara sampradnyat samadhi. Now what has happened is the yogi has advanced itself. Now he doesn't require any gross object. If you have to meditate, why have an object in front of you? You can meditate on anything. Now the question is, so far for our understanding, because our experience is limited, we only see gross things. Even for Rama also, if I say Rama was Atma Tattvam, I cannot imagine also. What is Atma Tattvam? Red, blue, black, tall, short? I can't imagine. But I can imagine some painter who has done this Rama's painting. Oh, this is Rama. I can focus on him now. So that's why we cannot go beyond gross. But a yogi who has done Vitarka Samadhi already, because of his power of concentration, and now that he has started seeing the Pancha Mahabhutas in the object of contemplation, he is able to go to the roots of Pancha Mahabhuta. And what is the root of Pancha Mahabhuta? It is called Tanmatra. Now question is, what is Tanmatra? Tanmatra is the potential manifestation of Pancha Mahabhuta. Prithvi, Jala, Vayu, Teja, Akasha, 5 Pancha Mahabhutas we know. We know Akash is so big and all that. We know Prithvi is so big, but all this so big was once upon a time so small before manifesting, before expanding. If it was so small, then is it possible for me to focus myself on those small or the origin or the potential Pancha Mahabhuta? It is possible. That is called subtle meditation. Focusing on the subtlest aspect of Pancha Mahabhuta, which is nothing else but they are called as Tanmatras. Tanmatras. If you think of a bullet, it has a firepower. Now you focus on a bullet, you will get the power of a bullet. But the bullet itself takes its power from the powder. The fire power is in that powder, which gives it to the bullet as well as to a bomb also. Now, if you go to that particular thing, the root, this is somewhat similar as an analogy. So if you focus on subtler elements called tanmatra, now you will ask me a question that if I have to focus on tanmatra, how do I do that? You cannot do it, sir, unless you do the vitarka samadhi. It's a stage next to that, because comprehending the tanmatra to focus also, it's not an object anymore. It's not an abstract idea itself. It is something that is revealed only when you have meditative eyes to explore the Pancha Mahabhutas so that it can take you to the Tanmatras. So it is a logical corollary or logical progression from Vitarka to Vichara. The question here is, then first one was called Vitarka because he was questioning, he was trying to analyze. Now analysis is no more required. He knows now. He knows everything around this. Whichever if I've taken one thing in the focus and I know all the Pancha Mahabhutas, I know the external world, I know the object. Now he's more thinking about the subtler or the finer aspect. That is why it is called Vichara Samadhi. Why? The person is still aware of what he's doing. Mind well, these 4 stages that we are studying are the stages in which the one who is meditating is aware of what he's doing. That is why it is so beautifully described. After this, that which samadhi, asampradnat samadhi, nobody is able to describe. Why? The experiencer is no more there. Here it is still an experience. Why experience? Because the meditator is still away from the meditation. From the dhyaya, dhyata is still away. So dhyanam is being experienced. It is higher experience, not like our laukika. It is alaukika experience, but it is still alaukika experience, anubhava. So vitarka leads to vichara. In vichara, the focus is on tanmatras. By having focus on tanmatras, meditation on tanmatras, what happens? All the power of the tanmatras come to you. Then what happens? Tanmatras are the precursor of everything, including mind. From tamoguna, tanmatras have come. So tanmatras, because tanmatras are everywhere, karmendriyas coming there. So that being the reason, he gets further more power. Again, siddhi. एक तो पंच महाभूत हाथ में आ गए थे, अब तन्मात्रा भी हाथ में आ गई. Then what happens? He can play whatever he wants with the Pancha Mahabhutas. For example, he feels that, let me tell Pancha Mahabhutas that make me a very small thing like an atom. He will be made into an atom. He can focus on a feather of a bird and tell the tanmatras that let me be bird feather, and he'll be as light as the feather bird and he will fly away. He can tell the Prithvi or all the tanmatras that I would like to travel without touching the water. He can do that. If he says, I would like to go through the fire, but the fire should not burn me, because the fire is under him, the Dahya Shakti, the burning power of the fire, is subdued. That is called Siddhi is waiting for an order. The yogi has reached that stage. Sudden awareness of this Siddhis gives enormous amount of confidence, enormous amount of sense of achievement. That is where Patanjali Maharaj says, be aware, because you may be misled by the Siddhis. And that is how we are going to see the Siddhis later on. Vibhuti Pad is entirely on the Siddhis. It is like an entertainment by itself. So many Siddhis are described that we cannot imagine also. The powers. But a real Jnani goes beyond these Siddhis and never exhibits the Siddhis. And the classical example is Gurudeva himself. We are trying to see Sampradnyat Samadhi stages. Vitarka is followed by Vichara. And mind well, the intense heat of white meditation, what Gurudeva is called an experience, is yet to come. Every time we are studying this, keep Gurudeva on the back of mind to know which stage he had reached. Simply saying Gurudev ki Jai has no meaning. We need to understand where he was. We are right now in Sampradnyat Samadhi, second state called Savichara Sampradnyat Samadhi, in which the focus of attention meditation is Sukshma Tanmatra. And this is called Sukshma Dhanam. Again, if this is done with reference to space and time, it is called Savichara. If the reference of space and time is dissolved, it is called Nirvichara Sampradnyat Samadhi. So we saw 4 stages. Savitarka Sampradnyat Samadhi, Nirvitarka Sampradnyat Samadhi, Savichara Sampradnyat Samadhi, Nirvichara Sampradnyat Samadhi. These 4 samadhis, or the 2 stages of Vitarka and Vichara of this mantra, only 2 words we have seen today. Vitarka and Vichara. In Vitarka, there are 2 types, Savitarka, Nirvitarka. In Vichara, there are 2 types, Savichara, Nirvichara. We saw these 4 samadhis. These 4 samadhis are also called as Grahya Samapatti. Grahya Samapatti. Grahya means Grahan karne, to obtain. Grahan karne, Surya Grahan. Swallow, obtain, cover. Grahya Samapatti. Sama means perfect. Apatti. Normally this word apatti is considered as sankat. मुझे एक आपत्ति आ गई थी. Apatti, the real meaning is acquisition. Acquisition itself is a apatti, sankat. But apatti means acquisition. So perfect acquisition is samapatti. Perfect acquisition of what? Truth. Satya. Because in this samadhi, the yogi comes to know the precise nature of these Panchamahabhutas. That is how they stop looking towards anything as he and she and that and this. Why? Every time they look at anything from stone to the man, they come to the inner Panchamahabhuta. So wherever they go, they don't see Nama Rupa. They see the Panchamahabhautika aspect, which has made this Ashtada Prakriti, as we call it. So Prakriti is seen through and through by them. That's why when we see a drunkard, we say, oh, look, he's a bad man, he is drunk and he's fallen down. A yogi, when he looks at it, he looks at it in a different way. The reason here is, where is the question of matsara, jealousy, anything? Why? He's not looking at you as he. See, the matsar is only when comparison and other things. He is beyond comparison because he's looking at what? The whole thing is Panchamahabhautik. He knows precisely. He's moving towards a distinct sense of Chaitanya is different and Achaitan is different. He's still not reached there, but he's on the way. And that is why these 4 samadhis are called Grahya Samapatti. There may be some new words that have come. Let us not get confused by that. We are trying to go as slow as possible. The concept is to understand in entirety, enlighten ourselves with the precise aspect, because this is what we are supposed to go through. More precision is required here because this was describable for those who went through these stages and they have actually described it. What I read is actually from the mouth of Swami Vivekananda, who experienced it like this every now and then. So empirical knowledge is being expounded by him. So far we have finished with Vitarka and Vichara of this mantra. The 4 samadhis and subtypes, 2 of each we have seen. And this is where the Sampradnyat Samadhi journey is on. The journey is yet to complete. Sampradnyat Samadhi journey is yet to complete. After Sampradnyat Samadhi, the Asampradnyat Samadhi is going to come. After Asampradnyat Samadhi, the yogi comes back into this world with a changed vision and the changed personality. We are going to see that in detail. Hopefully, what we have studied, if it is heard again and again, Bahushrutata, then it is easier to understand. It also gives us a feel that how difficult this path is. Uttishta Jagruta Prapta Varan Nibodhat Kshurasya Dhara Nishataya Durgam Tatha Pathaha Kavayo Vadanti. Durgam Apath. It is not easy. But that doesn't mean we should lose hope. We should lose confidence. Because we have already seen Viryam Utsaham Brahmacharyam. What is required is Virya and Utsaha is required in Yoga Shastra. We must always maintain that. Virya Utsaha is only through Sattvikta. So higher the Sattvic Buddhi, penetrating power of the brain, of the analytical aspect of Buddhi, will help us in understanding it more and more. Hari Om. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Oh. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Hari Om.
Hari Om, Sanjay ji.
Hari Om.
Sanjay ji, all this is good as theory. It's very, very subtle to understand for a lot of people. I mean, for someone like me. Are there any practical aspects of it to use them in practical life in grosser? I'm talking very, very gross right now in day-to-day life. So this is all theory. I'm talking about the practical aspects.
Yeah. See, the two aspects are there. This is a theoretical aspect, and it is a deliberate theoretical aspect because the practicals are anyway going to come in sadhana pad, one. And two, we are supposed to extrapolate on the thinking that we have done. Now, let us take example of this Savitarka Samadhi. What we said is that we focus on a gross object and then the gross object unfolds itself, isn't it? Now, let us take our day-to-day activity and take our day-to-day activities as a meditation, as a sthula meditation or this Savitarka meditation. Take any object, take any task that you do in a day. Let us take a task, a very simple task of making a food, some kind of some dish. Let us say making some dish. Now the question is, what could be the perfection of making a dish would depend upon how much focus and attention you have given to that particular task. Now, if we start focusing on that, take example that you first taken an onion and you want to cut it because now the dish preparation is going on. So what is important? When you are picking up the onion, your mind is on the oil. I'm giving very, very bare and a basic example. Now the question here is, I have taken onion in my hand. Many times it falls from my hand simply because I'm trying to pick it up with a very rapid pace because I want to reach to the other burtan in time, because I have to take the oil in time. I want to do things much faster. My mind is running much faster than the adequate attention to be given to each sub aspect of the process that I'm doing. Instead, if this is in our mind, this theoretical aspect in my mind, I shall do each stage not very slow and all, but with deep concentration. Now, when you take that particular onion in hand, again, you again further go into the depth of it. You will peel it off. Peeling can be done in so many ways. Either what happens, there is a wet hand, so the peel sticks to the fingers, or you try to throw the peel like this. These are all aberrations of what should not be happening. And they're happening simply because the focus or the concentration is not there. Now, supposing that there is a clean plate, peels are removed properly, the unwanted part is cut properly, then the cuts are given with equal intensity and pressure. They're cut with equal size. All of a sudden, don't you feel you are happy because it was done well? I could do it beautifully. Where from the anandam is coming? The onion is not supposed to give you anandam. In fact, you have not eaten anything as yet. Maybe your eyes are watering, yet you feel somewhere inside, प्याज अच्छा कट गया. So a mathematician solves an equation and he feels, wow, I could solve it. He hasn't got even money, he hasn't got any food, he hasn't got, the anandam is coming because it is unfolding from the process. And this process is because you are moving towards the perfection of one act called, which could be an ordinary act. It may be named as an ordinary act of cutting an onion, but every act has in its inherent nature same thing which is there in the samadhi pada also. So when the yogi or the person sadhaka in the yoga marga starts implementing these things at a minor level. See, we are talking about the mightiest of the might, but it will definitely help. If somebody comes across a huge wrestler, at least it will inspire us to do, if not more, 5 or 10 push-ups. In the similar manner, the tendency or the vritti or the pravrutti of ours will start moving towards doing everything with some element of focus or attention or meditative aspect in mind. And that is why when you passed your examination, you have done nothing else but meditation. If you're flying with flying colors, if you have passed out, you have done deeper meditation. The one who stood first and got the gold medal has done much deeper meditation. May it be a cricket played by the best cricketer or may it be the act, but these are all restricted to a certain things and certain outcome, and we stop there. Here the outcome is completely different, and the process and the methodology is slightly in a different direction. So that is why the practical aspect of it is there, provided the theory we bring it down to our day-to-day activity. Another aspect to it is, this is to be done by living everything. When we say practical, we want to know what can I do it in my daily life. What yogi is trying to do is, he's trying to do away with the daily life simply because doing daily life is not leading me to anywhere. However, we are stuck in grahastha ashrama, we can't leave it. But in the grahastha ashram itself, internally we can divide it as my daily duties and my own personal space, which is called own personal spiritual space. In that we can do this. Maybe half an hour, 45 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes sitting for meditation. But then sitting for meditation, sir, man nahi lag raha hai because it goes here and there. Why not? Why will not go? Because there is no chitta shuddhi. So that means again you come back to the previous stage. But all this plethora of things playing around you will constantly inspire you to move forward in a particular direction. How much you can make use of this knowledge in practical world is up to your ability, not up to the knowledge. The knowledge has full power. Gurudev did, how often you people found Gurudev in deep meditation? But for him, what he was doing itself was deep meditation. So converting day-to-day and regular acts into meditation. Take your own driving. It could be an act of meditative practice, provided it is done that way. And that is why those books called Zen of Driving and whatnot, they become popular. But that remains at a bookish level. Brushing could be an art of meditation. What you are doing is immaterial. How you are doing is more important. In a lady who is getting decked up for something, the concentration leads to what comes out as the result. How beautifully she has decked up herself. How beautifully she was deeply immersed into whatever she was doing. That mascara or whatever is happening is immaterial. That has nothing to do with it. The very fact that the concentration displayed has given the result which was likened by the person who was doing it as well as by the others. So meditative practices are everywhere. It all depends upon our ability. Hari.
Sanjay, just one quick other question. Thank you for this explanation.
Sandeep ji, can you be a bit louder, closer to the phone, please?
Yeah. Sanjay, thank you for this explanation about converting daily activities into meditative state. And being more meditative and more aware maybe of what we're doing. My question relates to, like Nachiketa in the Kathopanishad, all these meditative practices are just Nritya Gite, aren't they? They're not, they're just, there was this, they're not really correcting, or they're not really making me realize myself. They are, they are still diversions on the path. That's what I'm feeling. That there are more diversions on the path than going straight to the point of, making me realize. So, or making me correct my, wrong impression and wrong perception about myself. So, why should we even bother? I mean, it's a good thing to live in a meditative state constantly and we have the high sattva, but otherwise, why get into all these side alleys?
Hari Om. It is not at all getting into the side alleys. I think there is a misunderstanding there. It is a path that is taken where we need to see. You can't be reaching to the top unless you ascend the climb. Did you climb the ascent? So it is like a person who is taken to the hospital, and if he says that what is the point in having the bed and what is the point in having the cardio this thing machine and all that, ultimately the aim is to become okay. Why not to come directly to become healthy? These are not accompaniments. This is a sequential process. Whether you go it knowingly or unknowingly, in Bhakti Shastra, unknowingly you reach to the same stage. You get the same siddhis. So the fact is, it is not an option. It is a sequential thing. For that matter, tomorrow if I say that I'm not interested into all this meditative and all that, I just want to have Atma Darshanam, sir, you cannot have it. Even if you do not name it as Vitarka, Savitarka, this, that, there are so many of these sadhus who don't know even the name, but have reached that stage. They are illiterate. They cannot. Raman Maharshi did not do anything of this sort, but already reached there and then started reading and commenting on. To an extent, when these experiences were narrated to him, he said, yes, 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 this happens. So empirically he said about it, but the fact is, this is a sequential thing. This goes through these stages. And another thing is, why there is syllabus in the college? Why not say that, oh, anyway, you want to learn engineering, learn the way you want. No, there is a method to it. So first year, you will first a fundamental concept, second year. This is because that is the paramparic way put forward by those who reach there, because only when you reach there, you are able to guide us. So they have guided us. That is the reason why Patanjali has written the sutras. Otherwise, he would have written only one sutra, that be meditative and reach the Purusha level. Why he has written so many sutras is because this is a process. The process has to be undertaken. It is a stage-wise thing, and it mind well. This is not going sideways. What is happening is you are detangling yourself from the wrong bias to the right track. Now you call it as a process, or you call it as removing the wrong thing so that you reach the right thing. Anvay Vyatirek. Depends on which approach you take. But it is definitely not going sideways. It is going right through and through a process to reach that stage. Now, if you want to somehow obviate or somehow keep these things on the side and move forward, that possibility comes only when you opt for some different yoga. For example, in Bhakti Yoga, by Bhav. But most important thing is, Bhakti Yoga is as difficult as Raj Yoga. It is very easy to say, मैं तो खाली भगवान का ध्यान करता हूँ, जो मुझे कुछ नहीं समझता, मैं खाली भगवान विठल विठल करके पहुंच जाऊंगा. विठल विठल करके पहुंचने में भी इसी प्रोसेस में से जाना होता है, जिसमें ना तो शायद आपको नाम का पता हो. So the fact remains that one has to go through. What does a Vedanti does? He goes through Anvaya, only Atman. So he's not talking about all these stages. In Vedanta, you don't see these stages. This is in Yoga Darshana. But these stages are elaborated here. Hatha Yogi will not even talk of this. A Hatha Yogi says that, why should I talk of all this? All I need to do is take the prana and apana, put it to Sushumna, take it upwards, the Kundalini, moment it does the 3 Granthi Bhedana, goes to the Sahasrara Chakra, I am done, I am into Samadhi. But saying this is very easy. What he is doing by giving other name, he is also going through the same stage. Now he is not naming those stages. But if you ask him, did you get this siddhi on the? Yeah. I said yes. Could you see Panchamahabhutas exposing themselves in the intricate details? He'll say yes. That's why if you see Tukaram, who never did Raja Yoga, if you see his Abhangas, there is so much reference to yoga. If you see Jnaneshwari, there is so much reference to that. So because the experiences are same, everybody is getting on this. Yoga, Patanjali Yoga Shastra is considered most practical by Vivekananda himself is because he systematically elaborated it. And systematic elaboration is the precise quality of Sankhyas. That is why Sankhya and Yoga are always together. They are good friends. That's why Sankhya and Yoga is always taken as a name together as Darshan. Hari.